TM Hyman, welcome. This is Leadership on Demand. Today we are featuring like one of my favorites. He's my peer on Clubhouse, and if you don't know what Clubhouse is, you will soon find out. I'll tell you, you're missing something. Please do me a favor and welcome my guy, Brad Caldwell. Brad, hola.
What's happening?
Hey, man, everything is happening. Everything is happening, man. Listen, we got, what? Recession on the horizon. One would say that we're already there. Like I think we're there, right? No, I don't think we should wait on a big announcement, right, to say we're in a recession.
Yeah.
We're feeling it already, right?
Yeah, I think most tragedy is announced in hindsight
Later.
Yeah. Nobody ever says like, "Hey, this awful thing's coming,"
Definitely.
and then they properly forecast it. I think more often than not, we see something bad on the horizon about 15 minutes after the sun has started to set.
For sure.
Yeah. So I think people are feeling it. I just think the reason it's not on the news is because the people who are feeling it were the people who are already hurting in the first place.
Already hurting.
Yeah.
Brad, CEO of Spark Business Strategies.
Yes, sir.
Man, we met last year in NYC for a meetup, and man, I have followed you and totally enjoy and lean in anytime you're speaking on Clubhouse. My friend, officially, I think I just did, but why don't you introduce yourself and tell folks who may not be familiar a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I Spark Business Strategies is a branding and marketing agency down here in North Carolina. I know it looks like I'm in Illinois, but I'm not. I'm just a diehard Cubs fan, which is painful more often than not. But yeah, we did branding and marketing. We've been doing that for 3.5 years. We've been able to work in sports, medicine, trade, a lot of SaaS stuff all of a sudden, really starting to lean into brand development and consulting work for higher level agency people who have a whole marketing team, but something's missing and they don't know what that is. So they bring us on. Been doing that for 3.5 years, married to Grace 15 years now, which is
congratulations,
outstanding. We got 3 little boys, Parker, Elliot, and Benjamin are 13, 8, and 3. And working in a couple other projects, working on there's a new app development company that I am a part of the founding advisory board for, which is fun. Going to be launching that soon, and apparel and a bunch of different stuff, man. You know how it is. You got to diversify. We get bored, people like you and I. We get bored too easy.
Diversify. Like, I mean, I find myself tied up, tangled up in a lot of different things as well. I get bored real easy, Brad.
Yeah.
And so for me, bobbing, weaving, and making sure that my ears to the ground with cutting edge. I'm an early adapter innovator, right? I mean, I'm typically on the cutting edge, or at least I like to be. Like Clubhouse, right? I mean, was in the beta phase of Clubhouse, and there's still people who have no idea what this Clubhouse thing is, which is like crazy for us, right? How did you get into brand strategy and marketing? Because it's one of the most important things in business as it relates to growing your business. How did you get involved with that?
So I got super lucky. I had left a long-standing career that I'd been in for more than a decade and fell into restaurant management because I had management experience. And then really, really fortunately went from a terrible job to Chick-fil-A.
We love Chick-fil-A, brother. I'm in Atlanta, so you know I love Chick-fil-A.
And so I worked at a franchise that at the time had been told it would be a couple $1 million and a year max, and was trying to figure out how to break the $4 million mark annually, and had a really, really smart owner operator who was also hyper analytical, hyper numbers, really good with people, but he had to force himself to do it. So we're the opposite. He's the introvert who's read every book you could name. I'm the extrovert who has books in the background because they look good. It's a good aesthetic. I've read some of them. But he and I, we would butt heads and we would collaborate, and I would talk to him about business philosophy, and he would show me like the P&L. and we would just constantly. I learned more about how to do proper business and to be well rounded, and I think it forced him to listen to some things that weren't normal for him for in his ethos. And that store is doing way more than $4 million now.
Wow.
I wouldn't be shocked if they're double that
Yeah.
for a store that's not at a mall, not off the highway. It's doing killer in Durham, North Carolina. While we were there, one of the opportunities that Tony is the owner, that he gave me and another guy, another kind of GM figure, was to take the brand of Chick-fil-A and teach it to other industries. So like we were in Durham, North Carolina. So like data, Durham, I think it's Durham Area Transit Authority. So the bus system, they were like, well, come meet with our people. And I'd be like, but you know what Chick-fil-A is. What you think of Chick-fil-A is true. Like there is a huge element of faith. That's not wrong. That's not inaccurate. That's not a company secret. It's closed on Sundays, yes, for family. But the first family of Chick-fil-A was at church on Sunday. You can't get around that. But it is just chicken. But at the same time, if you think that the emails are almost always super polite, it's because they are. It's the happiest group of people in the world who just make fried chicken. And they train it up in 13 and 14-year-olds who can only work a few hours a week. And those 14-year-olds never leave. And when they're 25, they own a Chick-fil-A and they're a millionaire. And you're like, how does that happen? And Chick-fil-A shows you, like it is in the my pleasure mentality. It is in the speed of service and going to other businesses and realizing that not only could they not do what Chick-fil-A does, even if Chick-fil-A showed them, but figuring out why they couldn't. And it's because a lot of businesses create a company, a lot of individuals create a company around something that individual either created or can execute at a high level. So like you created a hammer company because you know how to make hammers, or you created a construction company because you know how to build houses.
Yeah.
But in order for those companies to be 20 years old, you need someone who can sell hammers. You need someone who can coerce suppliers. You need someone who can get into market share. You need to have an awareness of your competition. You need to be able to say something other than we build houses or we build hammers. And most companies just don't have it. They don't have that. So what happens in marketing, because marketing is just an industry. It's just an industry, just like finance, just like politics, just like education. And so if there's an easier way to make $1, you're going to make the dollar. If you tell me that I can make $5 and never move, or I can make $8 and bust my butt, I'm going to figure out how to live on $5. That's true of that's true of just about anyone in the world. In fact, most of the people that we idolize for what they've done is because while they were making $5, they created something worth $1 million. And it was because they could just coast at a job that they were allowed to start something else. And I think for a lot of businesses, we create a culture around one person's capacity to make something. And so when you put it under stress, it fails. It fails the stress test. Yeah. They don't have an ethos of service. They don't have an ethos of scalability. And the reason they don't have any of those things is because the person who started the company really just knew how to make a hammer.
Yeah.
And so they made the hammer, brought in some other people to make hammers just like they made hammers. And at the end of the day, man, all you guys are a bunch of people that know how to make hammers, not how to make money. I went into marketing after Chick-fil-A. We moved to the West Coast just kind of for fun and moved to Seattle. Marketing's huge out there. And so you'd hear digital marketing, social media management. This is how you get on TV, ad space, ad buy. and man, dollars are flying everywhere, and it's got to be pretty and attractive and phenomenal. And then you see off in the distance, like UPS is brown and like gross yellow.
Gross yellow.
Their logo is unattractive. Their marketing makes no sense. What can Brown do for you? Just ship. That's it. But they have some of the highest employee retention.
Yeah.
At a
I
job.
know work over it. Absolutely.
It's hard. UPS is hard. Like, we're not talking about people like tossing boxes of ribbons.
Yeah.
We're talking about mattresses and ovens and whole warehouses where you're loading them onto a truck all day long. You're taking it off of a truck all day long. And they have all the problems that a mailman has and all the problems that a warehouse worker has and a logistical nightmare that I can't fathom.
Yeah, absolutely.
But all they've ever done is grow. Why? Because everybody at UPS knows what UPS is about. And when you think about some of their core tenets and some of the things that they've expressed really, really simply in marketing, it's just true. But they know it. They have an awareness of it, and so they lean into it. And it was recognizing that there were flashy restaurants and businesses and people who had $1 million to invest into a company, so they spent $1 million. And that company is not here anymore. And that was 2014 through 16. And those companies are gone. Like, what happened to them? They had tons of money. They had tons of motivation, tons of energy. Where did they disappear to? And they disappeared into the world of, we make hammers, but we don't know how to sell them.
Don't know how to sell them.
We make hammers, but we don't care about hammer users. And that's what we do. We care about the hammer user on behalf of the person who knows how to make them. I don't make any of, what was it, BASF? We don't make any of the products you buy. We just make the products that you buy better. That's us. That's what we do. All we're trying to do is make the job of the business person better by solving the pain points of their clients and customers more clearly. That's all.
Mindset of the customer.
Mm-hmm.
The mindset of the customer. Chick-fil-A understands it
Yeah.
really, really well, right?
Yeah, super.
And I think in order to be successful in business, you have to understand like what your target audience, what your customer wants and needs, right?
Mhm.
When you are onboarding, when people are coming to you looking to grow their business, what's the biggest challenge that you have to overcome specific to mindset? Because a lot of this stuff is mindset, right?
Yeah. I think there are two. Speed is always a problem in business. How quickly can you do something? So the speed of implementation is always going to be paramount. But I also think the speed of trust is equally paramount. That's what Chick-fil-A figured out. Chick-fil-A figured out that most people who are going to fast food restaurants are in a hurry and they need something quick. It's not cheaper than cooking at home. It's not cheaper than eating a sandwich a day. It's barely more convenient, but families are on the go.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody knew about the fast food industry. Chick-fil-A seemingly asked a question: do you trust them? And people are like, what do you mean? What does trust have to do with
Everything.
picking up a Big Mac,
Everything.
going to grab a Whopper or a taco? What's trust got to do with it? And when Chick-fil-A interjected a core principle of economic exchange, now we know it's true. We know people will shop somewhere that they trust, either the product or the service.
Yeah.
But we had never really thought about it in the fast food realm until about 40, 50 years ago when Chick-fil-A said, and you can trust us. Like, you can trust, this is all we do. This is all we make. So we're going to make it for you, and we're going to make it honestly 6 days a week. And on the seventh day, we rest. And you can trust while we do that too. And you're like, man, trust. And you immediately turn to look at all of what was their competition then and said, I don't trust the McDonald's and the Taco Bells and the Burger Kings of the world.
Yeah.
And immediately it set quick service dining kind of flipped it on its head. So now when people ask, what are the 3 most popular fast food restaurants in America? The answers are weird. It's like Chipotle, Chick-fil-A, and Panera. Panera is not supposed to be fast food, but you trust Panera because they show you what they make.
Right.
You know there's a baker there from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. making all that stuff in that window. You know that. You could drive by. There's always a car at Panera. At Chipotle, you watch them make the burrito. And since the Chipotles of the world and the Paneras of the world can't convince you to be Chick-fil-A, they just beat all the normal chains in something else. So I think speed of trust and speed of implementation for any business are the outliers, are the things that make you different. If I can convince you to believe me and then show you my work, or even better, show you a return on that investment that you've made, well, you would never leave, ever.
Yeah, and they're experiencing that, right? Lifetime. I'm a lifer when it comes to Chick-fil-A.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And it's so interesting the way you just broke that down, right? Speed of trust, and just speed in general. The trust factor, I mean, is extremely important. I don't think we really consider that, right?
Yeah.
As entrepreneurs, but for those who understand it and insert it, it's they win. Even going back to just service in general, customer service. I mean, customer service in 2022 across industries, it's trash.
Yeah.
It's trash. I mean, we're so focused on the dollar, and COVID has done a number on us, right? That we truly forget that customer service is the cornerstone of it all, right?
Well, you think about you mentioned that we might be in a recession or 40% through the recession that we're already in.
Already in.
When in 2008, 2009, when you had the housing collapse, what we really found out was it wasn't a collapse of housing supply. It wasn't a collapse of housing demand. There was something in the banking side of it that was so callous and so financially askew from the promise we thought we were being made. We thought it was just really simple. Like, you go to the bank, you find out this is how much you can have for a house. That's how much you can have for a house. No one would ever fudge those numbers. It's too direct.
Yeah.
Well, how could you possibly fudge those numbers? And, oh, who cares that you sell my mortgage? My mortgages aren't going to change. And people just found out that's just like not true. And people lost their shirts. If you'd have been able to forecast in 2006 that what was coming in 2008 was not an economic collapse of the housing market, but an economic collapse of the financial market and kind of a trust issue, people would have looked at you like you were crazy.
Facts.
If I tell you that the greatest loss of COVID, now, of course, we don't want to, I lost friends because of COVID. So, of course, humanity, whole human beings is the greatest loss of the pandemic. But economically and in business, the greatest loss is the myth that large companies care about their employees. That myth got busted.
Yeah.
Because at COVID, when the government, whether you agree with it or not, said, well, this is what you should be making and your jobs are closed, so we're just going to give that to you.
Right.
Forget the economics, forget what we do in our free market and how wackadoo we can be sometimes. Think of it as like just a promise from your uncle because he knows you'd be better off at home. So TM, just go home. I'll take what you're supposed to make per hour and I'll pay it to you in full. Don't go to work. And then he pays you so much more than you make. And you're like, did you say this is what I'm supposed to be making?
Right.
And you're like, yeah, what do you normally make? About 2/3 of this.
Way less than that.
Like, I make 60% of this thing you're paying me. Is it hard for you to be able to afford it? No. This is like one jet fighter. We just paid you one airplane in the United States Army. That's what we just paid you. Oh, how many airplanes you got? Tens of thousands.
Tons.
You got plenty. And you're just gonna pay me, and people are like, oh man, people are lazy, people don't want to go back to work. Not to those conditions. Like, hey, do you want to get yelled at by every angry person in the world when your uncle just showed you you're making 60 cents to every dollar that you're owed?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what minimum wage is or any of those weird numbers. I don't know. I'm not an economist. I just know that it showed that a vast majority of people who hire college educated and under have been dramatically underserving and undervaluing their staff. Man, you're finding a handful of companies got no problem getting employees.
Yeah.
Walmart's good. Amazon's fine. Chick-fil-A's okay. Oh, Target's got plenty of people. But fast food restaurants are like, sorry, we're closed on Mondays.
Yeah, it's
Oh, we can't do our late night menu anymore.
Yeah.
You know, your malls, your mall stores, you know, like you picture like your Foot Actions, your Claire's, where girls getting their ears pierced.
Struggling.
They're struggling mightily because they were trying to pay people $9 to work 39 and a half hours. And so they wouldn't have to pay them that, you know, we don't even want them to know that overtime's a thing. And you can say it's callous. You can say, you can make up any reason, but the reality is they just didn't have to pay attention to them.
Yeah.
So they didn't. Because there was always a stack of applications on. I've been that manager. I know how many applications I had for every job I had available. Chick-fil-A, man, we would have applications when a job would become available. We would hire. We would go back and look at previous applicants and open the job. So we would have 40 back applications and get 50 new applications for one job. And just because of due diligence, we got to go through all of them. And then at our store, you would interview with an employee first, and then one of the head managers, and then another head manager, and then the owner. So just to get a job at a single store, you had to go through 4 interviews. And once you got through the 4th interview, you made more money than all your friends at all the other fast food restaurants. You just did. You just did. And it wasn't some grandiose, we're better than everybody else. It was, well, this is how you're supposed to treat people. I'm supposed to tell you that you don't care where in Durham people came from. And I don't know what you know about Durham, North Carolina. There's a lot of unique spots in that town. You know, 15 minutes north, you are in the country.
Yeah.
Country. Like
I drive through there on my way to Norfolk, Virginia most of the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just 10 minutes south, you're in the part of Durham that I'm from, and it's inner city projects. It's very low income. The very northern part of the county, very white. 10 minutes south of the store that I was in, very Black American, and then a heavy Hispanic population. You're right across the street from a major hospital. You never know who's going to walk in the door. So that 14-year-old's got to be able to get through 4 interviews, because we want them to be the 20-year-old that's the next person training that 14-year-old. And if we don't value the staff, then they're not going to value the client.
Yeah.
And I think I really think that's been the thing. That's been the most revealing thing during the pandemic. That and we're a crazy country. We're nuts.
Man.
But those 2 things are, I think, what we learned. We learned businesses don't love their employees, and now they're paying for it.
Yeah, in a major way. Recruiting, you just laid it out, I think, very eloquently, like you normally do, my friend. You know, I happen to know that you are a pastor, former pastor. You still have the credentials, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I officiated a wedding 2 weeks ago, and I got another one coming up in a couple months.
Yeah, your messages are always like spot on business, but so pastoral. Like, I've never heard someone speak, right, with such conviction in business, but you are straight on delivering like a message from the pulpit, a
Yeah.
message of accountability, right? And do what you're supposed to do, and just stop playing around, right? I know that people who listen to you, who know that. But what's one thing people don't know about Brad Caldwell?
Ooh, ooh. I mean, I think, gosh, we could go in a lot of directions there. I went I went to college to sing. That's what I
Wow,
went into college for initially. Um,
that's interesting.
yeah, I have a degree in something that has nothing to do with any job I've ever had. I have a degree in philosophy. I
I'm not
Hey,
surprised by that. That's that might sound shocking, but
it
anyone
does
who
come across
listens to
well.
you,
It does come
it's not
across.
shocking at all.
I think I approach the one thing about me that I think people will get it, but I think a really good way to kind of explain it, to articulate it, is that I believe wholeheartedly in a philosophical kind of tenet called presuppositionalism. And what it means is that we presuppose all the time. If you are a believer in any faith, you presuppose the existence of whatever the deity of that faith is. You don't wake up every morning having to renew an understanding that for me, that I believe in God and that I believe that Jesus Christ is who he says he was and did what he said he did. I don't have to rethink that. That's solidified. That's in there. And so for me, shortly after, and it's part of what maybe did me in ministry, and it's also part of what has sustained me so well in business, is that I presuppose imago Dei, the image of God. I maybe my favorite religious doctrine, theology, is that what makes T.M. Hyman unique from everything in the created order is that you are a part of the only species God ever said he designed that one after himself.
Mm.
And so in business, I'm dealing with a business owner who's created in the image of God, who is trying to pay employees who are created in the image of God in the effort to make a product or execute a service or accomplish a mission for the benefit of people created in the image of God. And I think that is what carries over. That sounds more pastoral, that sounds more philosophical, because at the end of the day, man, I think nothing's more important than understanding what you value. And
Absolutely.
I don't value anything above people.
Yeah.
Sounds a little hokey out loud, to be completely candid, but I think I have some receipts that would say, yeah, if I've got to place humanity in a certain order, grace is first. All you other suckers bow the knee to my wife, including the three little peasants that live in our home. They are not, they are not princes. We tell our sons all the time. She is the queen. I am the king. I work to the pleasure and goodwill of the queen. You are the peasants. You work for me.
Yeah.
The only way you get an inheritance is if, as the king and queen get close to their untimely death, we decide to promote you to prince. That's it. That's it. Otherwise, you're peasants in this house. We like you and we let you stay. The law says at a certain age, you can get the boot. And I am keeping a ledger. Don't start. And I love people who need nothing and give away. I love people who reflect the value given to them. I love people who are hurting and know it. And I love people who are hurting and have no idea. And so I think if you know that I like Clubhouse, like this call, I don't know who's going to hear it. They might be like, man, blah, 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 Chick-fil-A, blah, blah, blah. Of course, he's in ministry and then he worked at Chick-fil-A. And now he's in marketing. That's the whitest three things I've ever heard. Just boom, boom, boom. Of course, he said he lived near the projects. I didn't live near them. I lived in them. And if they hear nothing else, I want them to be like, so that dude is saying that if I walked up, he would just care.
Yeah.
I hope so. I
Yeah.
hope so.
Well, and I know it's real. It's not lip service.
Mm.
We wouldn't be speaking right now, right, if it wasn't real, because I typically connect with like-minded people, or people I can just simply learn from, right? And in turn, if I can learn from them, my audiences and the people I support, right, can learn as well. And so I've listened to you enough to know that you're consistent and you're real, and your values are on point, right? You love your wife, you love your family, you love God. My pillars are faith, business, and leadership, right?
Yeah.
This is a leadership podcast, and so you do it, my friend, and you're authentic with it, right? You're authentic with it. When it comes to leadership characteristics, leadership attributes, what do you think are some effective leadership attributes?
Oh man, I think you just said one. If I right, so you're in my office. So just beyond the screen that I'm talking to you from is a big board, and on it, taunting me every day, is the outline to a book I haven't written. There's a diagram on the bottom left, and there's some chapter titles up at the top center, and then on the right side, there's literally a full outline of 9 potential chapters. And the idea would be to take back 2 words that we misuse. And so the book would be the authenticity algorithm. And it would be, what's the formula to teach anybody how to be authentic?
Mm.
How do we teach people to be authentic at all times, in all places, in every environment, regardless of season or circumstance? And the premise is that after 41, almost 42, I'll be 42 in a couple weeks. After 41 years of life, there are 2 groups of people that I have seen are just so fundamentally authentic that they ruin our definition of authenticity. And those 2 groups are babies and serial killers. We have taken authenticity to mean something great and altruistic. But what if authenticity is just the marriage of our belief and our behavior? So what if every passionate lover of people just walked around passionately loving people? Well, that sounds utopian and wonderful. But we also know that there are bigots in the world who pretend they're not bigots all the time. You know what a serial killer doesn't do? Pretend.
Yeah.
They're horrible. They're weird. They're aloof. They're bad in a room. Yeah. But to make it a little more palatable, we say, yeah, but look at a baby. We have a 3-year-old at home. Do you know how I know when Benjamin isn't feeling good? Benjamin tells everybody. Everybody. If he stubs his toe, he does not quietly suffer in the pain. He screams like he's been set on fire, like it's the worst thing that's ever happened to him. You tell him Paw Patrol is done and we got to change it to something else or turn the TV off, you will hear his dissatisfaction. You tell him that if he eats all of his food, he gets ice cream, he is going to wolf down food he otherwise has no interest in because he likes ice cream that much. Yeah. And you could say, oh, that's bribery or that's just children being children. But it's so freaking authentic. It's so real that you got to be, it's captivating. It's captivating to be around a child more than anything because you always know. If you've ever been around, like it's why, so a part of a joke, and it is so far in the book, I'm not sure it'll stay, but it's why cats are the least authentic creature of all time, proving that the only mistake God ever made was cats. Because I hate cats, but
I don't like them either, buddy.
I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan.
Dog person, really.
But if you think about it, if you walk into a room and someone says our cat is shy, and you're like, I don't like cats, that horrible, fake, shy cat will end up in your lap or around your legs. I don't know. They're terrible, terrible creatures. because the owner will tell you one thing about them and then they will behave a different way. And it's that juxtaposition that is entirely human, but we let it slide so often because we would say, oh, John is so authentic because he does this one thing. That has nothing to do with authenticity. He might be nice because he does this one thing, but he could also be a prick 5 seconds later because he does this one thing. So goodness or badness has nothing to do with authenticity. And then obviously algorithm, you and I, because we're in the social media world, we know far too much about the marketing space and how people freak out about what's Google saying about my website, what's Instagram saying about my reel, what's Facebook saying about my post, blah, blah, blah. And we've taken algorithm to mean this super negative thing. But an algorithm is just a formula to devise an outcome. So we're asking the wrong question when we ask, what's the algorithm? We should be asking the question, what does Google want? What does Instagram want? They want really honest things that never have blowback on them, who create great content on a consistent basis. That is all they've ever wanted. Whenever they change the algorithm, they're trying to find more of that. They want content creators who don't create blowback and keep people coming to Instagram because it makes their ads make more money.
Absolutely.
Well, if that's all they want, then just figure out what they mean by those things and quit giving a crap about the word algorithm. Because they're playing with the formula and we're over here arguing about whether or not they should have a formula. And they're like, bro, we could shut this off tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then all your marketing is gone.
Consistent, creative, and nothing that's going to blow back on.
Yeah, that's all they want.
Spot on.
And what's crazy is that we get mad at social media platforms, but they've never lied. They don't lie. Why did Facebook allow Russia to put so many weird ads in? Because they wanted money.
Yeah.
That's why. Why?
What was that?
That's it. They're a business. Like we forget that sometimes. And I think sometimes we have such an altruism about what we want for other people to do that we forget that it's actually just a check of authenticity. And I think that's the greatest leadership principle. I don't care if you're a jerk, so long as you act like a jerk and think like a jerk. Then you're a jerk. But if you talk like a saint and act like a jerk, you're a liar. You are inauthentic. And I can be around jerks. I struggle with a liar. Because again, we're coming back to the speed of trust. You'll see a documentary 15 years from now about a brand you and I agree is a good brand. I don't know what it is, but it's going to pop up on Netflix or Amazon or Hulu, and it's going to be atrocious. It is going to tell you that this brand was callous and abusive and didn't care. Remember when Uber was the single greatest thing ever?
Yeah.
And people were like, this will be unparalleled. Now there's a movie and a documentary about how evil they were.
Unbelievably evil.
Right. But what's crazy about Uber is that it still exists.
That's right.
Why does it still exist? Because when everyone said, oh, you're awful and you're terrible and you're bad, they went, we just give people rides. Shut up. They said, shut up. It's like to a nation. They were like, shut up. And you were like, oh, they're jerks. They have a jerk platform with a jerk leader who says jerk things just to make money. God, I'm loving Uber. It's unfortunately the negative side of authenticity is kind of where politics has slid in a little bit. Because now we no longer say, man, we want the reemergence of titanic figures that shifted. I mean, the easiest one to go for would be, of course, like Dr. King. Like, we don't want a Dr. King We don't even want a Malcolm X. We don't want people who would speak into injustice and clearly articulate it and talk that way for decades. We don't want those people. We want sensational and loud and angry, but we also don't want liars.
Yeah.
So that means we end up with politicians who are like, oh, well, I don't care about anybody. I'll say something ridiculous. And when someone says, when someone says, why did you do that? You'd be like, because I wanted you to remember me.
Yeah.
And you're like, what a terrible thing to say. Oh, but it was true.
Honest. Yeah, absolutely.
It's true. So they might be evil. They might be awful. They might be dumb. They might be clueless in their space, but they're authentic. And authenticity is such a divining rod in leadership.
Yeah.
If you can find someone who presupposes good things, I want to do good work for a fair price. I want to take care of my team and my clients. And that person is authentic.
Yeah.
You follow that person. I really don't care what they do.
I agree. I totally agree. Authenticity. You said a couple of things. You said quite a few things in this time, bro, and I really appreciate your time. I mean, we're talking to Brad Caldwell, who is the CEO of Spark Business Strategies, and you talked about trust. You know, you've talked about speed. You talked about authenticity, right? And you're making some things happen on behalf of others, helping to grow businesses. As we wind this thing down, man, you talked about a book that you're currently working on. But if someone was to write a book about your life, what would the title of that book be, my guy?
Book about my life.
What would the title be?
What a terrible read that would be. And something around, I don't know what the title is. He shouldn't even be here.
Oh gosh.
And here's why. Here's why.
That's an interesting title, though.
He shouldn't even be here because I was born with a birth defect that most kids die from.
Wow.
And the kids that live, the overwhelming majority, have debilitations and lose the ability to see, speak, walk.
Wow.
Live off of a bed. And I have survived 3 brain surgeries because of it, 2 GI surgeries because of it. I have been in half a dozen car accidents, one where the driver door fell off as the car landed, and the seatbelt fell off, the windshield fell in, and I just happened to still be sitting in the car. I have a career path that makes no sense, and man, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't have earned the right to be heard in your life. I shouldn't have earned the right to be on the shows with you. I shouldn't have been in the position to jump on the app simply because I look at all new apps for my clients. It's just what we do to see if we can help them monetize. Clubhouse was just never really that for any of my clients, but that's why we were there. And I shouldn't own Spark. I shouldn't own the other companies that I own or be invested in the other companies I'm invested in. And I shouldn't have gotten the job at Chick-fil-A. There's so many things, man. This guy in 1998, 99 would be a pastor by 2001. Man, I was a drug addict. I was an abusive person. The dude should not be here. The dude should not be here from birth to this moment.
That's powerful. That's powerful, man, and that's a powerful title. And we're going to leave it right there because for me, that's not just your story, right? Many of us should not be here. And it is truly through the grace and nothing more than the grace and the mercy, right, of our Heavenly Father. For those of us who believe, right, and know it's true, that any of us are here. right? None of us deserve uh, most of what we have. Most of us don't
Right.
deserve it, right? And
Right.
so he shouldn't be here as an interesting book title, my friend. I would read that book.
I appreciate it.
But by the way, and man, I just want to give you your flowers, bro,
Mm.
and thank you for your time. Again, Brad Caldwell, my friend, CEO, Spark Business, Spark Business Strategies. And if you're
That's it.
looking for some help in your business, Brad, how can we follow you? How can people get in contact with you? Because I mean, listen, people are trying to get more trust in their business. They're trying to do it faster, and they need more authenticity.
Yeah. So you can go to the website, and that's this is brandstrategy.com. So you can go there. That's Spark. And if you're looking for me, any social media platform, if you find Brad_Caldwell, that's usually me. And I'll be there, man.
Man, thank you so much. We will catch up soon. And when I'm coming through Raleigh, one of these, Durham,
Yeah.
one of these days, I'm going to stop in and check you
Please
out,
do.
my guy. And,
Please do, my
well,
brother.
I absolutely will. And look forward to hearing you again this week on Clubhouse. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, man.
Thank you so much.